Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Authentic Info Podcast. I'm your host, Admaster Ndilchao. The ENCA, during the funeral of Mangosuthu Buthelezi, had a tent or a mini studio, a mobile studio, where they were interviewing people during the proceeding, trying to get their views on different topics and things like that, which were happening in that funeral. They brought in Bantu Holomisa. And I heard Holomisa defending Buthelezi. The reason this captured my attention is that there are a lot of people who called the late Buthelezi with all sorts of bad names and bringing in the memories of him as a villain, as a mass murderer, as a heartless leader, and things like that. But it seems like there is the other side of Buthelezi that a lot of us did not know until he died. Because Holomisa speaks about Buthelezi, a man of peace. And this is something that a lot of us couldn't agree with, merely because of how the media treats us and the type of information that is given to the people in South Africa through these media houses and things like that. But now that he died, those who knew him personally came and told us a different story. Buthelezi was a changed man. Buthelezi was a Christian. We saw the bishop running things there. And you even had his daughter speaking about the spiritual side or the spiritual journey of Buthelezi. Holomisa comes in to speak about Buthelezi as a man of unity, to speak about the vision that he had for KwaZulu-Natal, to speak about the way he believed in education, comparing him to Matanzima. Now, if a man of Buthelezi's, of Holomisa's caliber comes in to speak very well about a person who is said to have betrayed the armed struggle and masqueraded as a freedom fighter while protecting the system that the likes of Apla, Mkhonto Sizwe were fighting. He pretended to be against, or he pretended to be part of the resistance from within. But the likes of Chris Hani, there's a video where he was saying that they know about Buthelezi and they know that he's getting paid from the apartheid government and they know that he's getting ammunition and firearm from the apartheid government to kill our people. Holomisa was a general expelled from the ANC for his position when it comes to things like negotiations and things like that. But he comes in to sell a different story or version of Buthelezi. Because in his last days of post-democracy, Buthelezi united the Zulu nation. He played a very critical role in uniting the Zulu nation, even on his last days, where we saw the Zulu king passing, and it wanted to be difficult for the nation of the Zulu to instate a new king. So upon the passing of Zwelithini, we saw Buthelezi being actively involved, as old as he was, and trying to make sure that the family of the Zulu king is not divided and everything goes according to their culture and tradition, and make sure that the rightful heir is the one who takes the throne. This is the type of Buthelezi that Holomisa was speaking about. A Buthelezi who had a vision to unite the Zulu nation forever. Buthelezi who believed in education. And Buthelezi who never forsaken his people. But growing up, we were sold a different version of Buthelezi. Buthelezi, a mass murderer who killed people in Katlehong, Val, Vosloorus, things like that. Buthelezi, the betrayer, one who couldn't be trusted, one who died believing or living a story that was given a mandate by the freedom fighters in exile to form an organization that will resist from within. And he never changed that position until he died. We were sold a story about Buthelezi, who's very heartless, a villain of the 80s and the early 90s. When people hear the word Inkatha, they think of blood and dead bodies. But we saw Holomisa giving us a different vision. The man of love, the man of unity, the man who advocated for education to be prioritized, healthcare and all other important basics of life. The speech or message delivered by Holomisa teaches us a lot about the role of leaders or our leaders in life. There is a politician in politics. There's a father. That person is a father at home. That person is a leader in the village and things like that, or a pastor. But in all where he exists and practice, he's a different man. When Buthelezi's daughter speak about Buthelezi as someone who would pray before he eats, would encourage everyone to read the Bible and give them Bibles. And when you read about the Buthelezi of the 80s and 90s, it's two different things. You think that is someone who didn't even have time to go home and be with his people. But Buthelezi built in the rural areas, in the villages, and he worked very hard to unite the chiefs of the Zulu land. He worked very hard to build the Ngonyama Trust, for example. So he was also very active on the issues of the land. So there are many things that after changing or understanding democracy, he has done to contribute to society than a lot of us who are blaming him for his wrongdoings in the 80s and 90s. Holomisa teaches us that Buthelezi was a changed man. Speaking of corrections, I think ex-offenders will relate that the correctional system works for people who want it to work, those who are willing. Holomisa teaches us that Buthelezi self-corrected. He identified his wrongs, went to God, prayed, went to church to submit under another man, something that when you read about the villain of the 80s and 90s, Buthelezi wouldn't do that. But he was that type of man. Very radical in his own right, fought for the right cause, and I think he won. Because there are many things that are established under his name by him, not some leaders who are just honored for their life. But meanwhile, they left nothing that we can touch and see. So Buthelezi, as presented by Holomisa, had two different versions. But the latest one was a more productive Buthelezi, people's person, who worked very hard to unite the people of KwaZulu-Natal and the Zulus in general. And we see a culture of Zulu people who are very proud of themselves. They are very proud of their food, the food they eat, the clothes they wear. I think these are the people who have conserved their culture very well. We are also taught by Holomisa that even the production of Shaka Elembe consulted with Buthelezi, pre-production of Shaka Elembe. So he was contributing even on the history of the Zulu nation, which is very productive of him. He has done a lot. He deserved that state category 1 funeral, which is, we know it's handled by the South African National Defence Force. So he deserved the honor and respect. And I think there is still a lot more to learn from his legacy than to speak from a different distance and go with the flow without understanding what is it that motivates these people to speak bad about a changed man. He's self-corrected. That is what those who served very close to him will tell you. All politicians have their own stories. And in fighting for their cause or whatever they believe in, along the way, they do a lot of wrong things and they hurt a lot of people. They injure a lot of people. Sometimes others even die along the way. Because even those tried to touch this story of Buthelezi the villain, saying that in fighting for freedom, there has to be casualties sometimes. And it is unfortunate that these people who happen to die, they have relatives, they have family, and they have loved ones. There are people who loved them and will never forgive those who caused or took the life of their loved ones. It happens. It can happen to anyone. So in the time that Holomisa was afforded by ENCA to speak about Buthelezi, he educated us a lot about Buthelezi, a unifier, a man of unity, a man who was very spiritual, a man who contributed a lot in KwaZulu-Natal and in South Africa entirely, a man who had strong views on the land. And today we see the Ingonyama Trust. It's always a topic. Today we see King Mrs. Zulu leading the Zulu nation because of the contribution of the late Mangosuthu Buthelezi. So there are many things right that are not written about Buthelezi that we need to learn as part of his legacy, so that we understand these African leaders, so that we understand who he was and what he represented and what he has achieved. So the Buthelezi legacy shouldn't be distorted with lies. We need to read and understand. We need to engage and listen to those who have served with him, who have been with him on this journey as a politician and as a leader of the IFP. Buthelezi declined nomination. That is when he left politics. And he afforded the current president of the IFP a space to lead and guide him from a distance. And because I think he believed that he was well groomed to take over the IFP and he wanted someone to take over while he was still alive. Something that a lot of African leaders cannot do. Some died without affording others a chance to lead. So he was a changed man. He had his own ways of leading. And I think we need to listen to those who knows him. We need to ask questions to those who worked with him. And we need to read about his legacy post-democracy, post-1994. We need to read about that. So we must respect the dead. That is our culture as Black people. And we have to also respect his family, relatives, colleagues who worked directly with him, who lived with him, who still wished to see him live for many more years. But unfortunately, he died, passed on, and we have to live without him. But his legacy, his memories lives on. And there's a lot to learn. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi says that they learned a lot from the IFP when forming the EFF, because they saw the IFP fighting the ANC toe to toe while it was not fashionable. And one thing that Holomisa speaks about is the understanding of co-governance that needs to happen between ANC and IFP in order to address the killings that are happening in KwaZulu-Natal, the political motivated killings that are happening in KwaZulu-Natal because they are out of hand. So this is a challenge, another challenge from a fellow politician or colleague of the IFP, current IFP leader, to say they must sit down and speak about these issues because they are now out of hand. So when General Bantu Holomisa speaks, and all other politicians who spoke, I think they spoke very well, they educate us and still identify issues that they think needs to be addressed. You know, we shouldn't just despair from a funeral and then life as usual. But we must take it upon a challenge when one soldier dies, that there are issues that needs to be addressed and there are matters that needs careful attention and critical analysis and solutions. So General Bantu Holomisa has taught me a lot of things that I didn't see the way he does or the way he did. So his view on the life and legacy and memories of Buthelezi are a sort of awakening. And I think I was lucky to have listened to him because now I have a different view and I understand issues even better. And I think the ANC and the IFP did not do well in addressing the political killings which are very brutal in KwaZulu-Natal amongst the Zulu people. So indeed, it's something that both presidents of IFP and ANC needs to sit and look at, and even the provincial leadership of both political parties, because the IFP is official opposition of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. They need to look into that and try to stop killing each other, but work together in the name of unity, because that is what the late Mangosuthu Buthelezi used to represent. So they must work together, united, and educate their constituency to understand that a defeat is a defeat and they shouldn't kill each other. This is Authentic Info Podcast. I'm your host, Admire Sandile. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's grow together. Hit the notification bell. Thank you.